In a minute, we will begin with our prayers. So please be patient, be cool and quiet.
Namaste.
We'll begin with our usual pratna now. Om, Om, Om Sahana Vatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Akhandamandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Agnanatimirandasya gnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara. Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sthavaram Jangamam Vyaptam Yatkincha Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapityata Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva tvameva vidya draminam eva tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayana Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maruta Suvanti Daivaihi Stavaihi Vedaihi Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Jnanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginah Yasyantam Navidu Surasura Gana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarvapapibhya Mokshayishyami Masucha. So with this, we will go into 30 seconds usual cooling down the mind. We call it dhyan. And I'm adding about a couple more minutes to that. So the intention is to prepare to listen to Sri Krishna. So let's begin with dhyana. Om. 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 So last time we have been talking about stanza number 14, which was Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti mam yo bijanati karma bihina vadyate. So he's saying, we already did this, but we will just connect from here. No action is tainting me. Means I may be involved in a lot of activities, but none of them will taint me. કોઈ મને ડાઘો નહીં પાડશે. નમે કર્મ ફલે સ્પૃહા. At the same time, I have no desire in the fruits of the actions. Iti mam yaha abhijanati. Whoever in this way knows me, karma bihina badyate. That person is not bound by his actions. So what a marvelous things. Just by knowing that the nature of Sri Krishna, that no action is binding him, no action is tainting him, and he has no connection or he has no desire in the fruit of the action. If a person just knows this much, even he is not bound by his actions. What a marvelous stanza this. So this is the fourth chapter, and which is elaboration continued from chapter 3 about the Karma Yoga. So 15 now. Evam gnatva krutam karma purvaihi api mumukshubhihi kuru karma eva tasmatvam purvaihi purvataram krutam. So this is the way the seekers, the people who were aspiring to be not bounded by the action, the mumukshu, seekers, whichever way they did. And if you continue doing the actions their way, you will also not be bound by actions. So there are several recipes going on here, how you can avoid the bindings of the actions. Kim karma iti kavayah api atra mohitaha. This is a very, very serious statement he is making, that kim karma kim akarma iti. What is action and what is akarma? And akarma is inaction. So there is action, there is inaction. What is action and what is inaction? Even kavayaha api atra. Even the wise people, the kavayaha, kavi. Kavi is not necessarily meaning here writing poetry, but the wise people, the people who have gone into acquiring good knowledge about this business. Tatya karma pravakshyami yad gnatva mokshase asubhat. That is what I'm going to clarify now. And knowing that, you will be free from the evil things happening in your life. Karmanaha api bodhavyam. Karmanaha hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. The action which should be done and the action which should be avoided, vikarmana, that should be known. Akarmanaha cha bodhavyam. And the action which should be avoided. Bodhavyam, that should be also known, Gahana Karmana Gati. Because the effect of the karma is a very deep sort of knowledge. Karmani akarmaha yaha pashyad. One who is seeing a karma in the karma. Karmani cha karmam yaha. So, action in inaction and inaction in action, the seeing the opposite. Saha buddhiman manushyeshu. That person is buddhiman. Manushyeshu, among the human beings. Saha yuktaha krutna karma krut. He is the accomplisher of everything. So this is an amazing thing. This is a real statement, something that we need to understand, that in inaction there is action, and in action there is inaction. So he's going to clarify this thing as we move on, how the inaction become action and action become inaction, etc. So that is something that we need to know, so we don't stay under illusion that way. There are a lot of illusory ignorances piled up in our mind, and we have to go through some clarification. Yasya sarve samarambaha kama sankalpa varjitaha. Whose undertakings, because before doing the action, somebody has to undertake. Yasya sarve samarambaha, the undertakings, kama sankalpa varjitaha, free from desire and purpose. Jnanagni dagda karmanam tamahu panditam buddhaha. Those people with Jnanagni dagda karmanam, who have burned the actions by the knowledge, whose doings are all devoid of design and desire for results, and whose actions are all burned by the fire of knowledge, him the sages call wise. So there is a definition of wise here, that who are the people who have the wisdom. Tyaktva karma phala asangam nitya truptaha nirasrayaha. Karmani abhipravuttaha api na eva kinchit karoti saha. This is another emphasis coming here about the karma phala. There's a lot of things about the karma phala, that how to stay away from that. Having abandoned attachment to the fruits of the action. See, the fruits of the action is again coming. Ever content, means satisfied all the time, depending on nothing. He has no dependence on anything. The dependence also brings the desire to have something. Though engaged in karma, even though he is busy doing some action, verily he does not do anything. So there is another definition, who is not doing anything, even though he is doing something. He's doing something, but if he has abandoned the attachment to the fruits of the action, content all the time, depending on nothing, even though he is buried in actions, he is not doing anything. So he's clarifying the action and inaction business. So when we are totally aware about what is action and what is inaction, then we sort of be careful about carrying the actions in a way so that they do not bind us. Nirashirya chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha. All the possessions, tyakta parigraha. He has renounced the possessions, even though he doesn't carry the possessions. Like Mahavir Swami, the second piece of his blanket, tangled in the thorns somewhere walking, he threw that away also and became Digambar. Shariram kevalam karma kurvan, kurvan no prop, kurvan no pi kilbisham. Hoping for nothing, his mind and self-controlled, having abandoned all possessions, performing karma by the body alone, he incurs no sin. So he's going out one after another statement who is not incurring any result of the karma. One more thing, yadruchala basantushta. Whatever comes to him, he's satisfied. Yadruchala basantushta dandvatitah vimatsaraha. And who is aware from the duals, vimatsaraha, no dvesh, samah siddhau asiddhau cha krutva apina nibadyate. And siddhi and asiddhi, he is aware from there. He is also not bound by the actions. Gatasangasya muktasya gnanavasthita chetasaha yagnaya acharatah karma sagram pravilyate. So this is in addition to all that is coming of one unattached, liberated with mind absorbed in knowledge, performing work for yajna alone. And yajna came, this phrase came in the last chapter, and we elaborated that the meaning of yajna is sacrifice. All the work is for sacrifice. And how it becomes sacrifice? No attachment, no desire for the fruit. In that way, if the action is carried on, that becomes yajna. And what is the emphasis here? Performing work for yajna alone. His entire karma melts away. See another statement, how his karma is gone, no effect, leaving no effect is, there are some conditions he is putting. Brahmarpana Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. This is a marvelous statement. Everything is Brahman. Giving in yajna, like, Havir Brahma Agno, in the fire we kind of pour the melted butter, ghee, and then donate something to the Brahmin. Brahme vatena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. Even all the actions and then the oblation and everything is Brahman. With that feeling, if one is doing the yajna, then also his actions are liberated. Devam eva apare yagnam yoginaha pariupasate. Apare, some yogis perform sacrifices to the devas alone. There are ways, now he's a little bit going into the Vedas, how the different actions are carried on. Some part will go in the Vedas, like how they do the yajna and things like that. So that is why he is referring, some yogis perform sacrifices to the devas alone, while others offer the self as sacrifice by the self, verily in the fire of Brahman. And some people do the tapascharya. They don't do the fire and ghee and all this kind of oblation. but they do the tapasya in the self, and that is how also they offer in the fire of the Brahman. Srotradini indriyani anya sanyamyeshu juhyati shabdadin viyanananya andriya gnishu juhyati. This is the stanza which is like in a dual fashion. They can use the senses to do tapascharya. One way is to control the senses, like ear, eyes, see only good things, hear only good things, controlling the senses. While another way is like, people put sandalwood and they make sugandhi, they make good fragrance and they please the senses. So one way is to involve the indriyas in the senses in tapascharya. Another way is by pleasing them, by doing the sandalwood, good, lamp and all that type of things. So there are two different ways, and they produce the same result. Sarvani indriya karmani prana karmani cha apare atma sanyama yoga gnau juhyati jnana dipide. So this is another something coming from the Vedas. And nowadays, those Vedas related sacrifices, activities, we don't see that many kind of things. So some of the statement here, we are sort of not as much knowledgeable as something before what he was saying. Dravya yagna tapo yagna yoga yagnana tatha pare swadhyaya gnana yagnaya cha yataha sanshita vrataha. Yet others offer wealth, means donation, money, etc., austerity and yoga as sacrifice, while still others of self-denial and extreme vows offer secret study and knowledge as sacrifice. So these are some the Vedic rituals, the way the Vedic how to do the tapascharya, but this is a little bit more intensive kind of thing than the doing the karma in a normal way. Apane juhyati pranam, prane apanam tatha apare, prana apan gati rudva pranayam pananaya. Now this is another thing about the pranayam thing. Also doing the pranayam, like controlling the breath and all that. This is something like the Hatha Yogis and all the yoga systems that are available in the Vedas. That is what he's touching somewhat. So others offer as sacrifice the outgoing breath in the incoming and the incoming in the outgoing. So controlling the breath, restraining the flow of the outgoing and incoming breath, slowly observed in the regulation of the life energy. So they regulate the life energy by controlling the breathing process. So again, this is what he's talking about is the pranayam and all the others uh, things that could be done. Apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhyati sarve api ete yagnavidaha yagna shapita kalmashaha. And this way, the others regulated food habit, offering the pranas, the functions of that. All these are knowers of yagna, having their sins destroyed by yagna. So doing the fasting, controlling the food, eating only wholesome, good food, and those kind of thing, that is also part of this doing good actions, he's saying. Yagna Sistam Rutapuja Yanti Brahma Sanatanam Naya Loko Asti Yagnasya Kunta Anyaha Kurushtama. The eaters of the nectar, the remnants of yagna, and this is about after doing the yagnas, they offer the food, and that is called the sacrificial food, prasad we call it, that go to the eternal Brahman. This world is not for the non-sacrifice. How then the other, O best of the Kurus? So he's very much uh, putting the boundary on what kind of yagna, how to eat the leftover food and all that. So there is some prescription here of which we are not traditionally so much aware about, but that is also part of improving the action which would lead into uh, the release of the effect of the karma. So the main idea here is how to mitigate, how to dilute the effect of the actions. And it requires a lot of awareness here, what to do, what to not do. Not that whatever happens in the mind, just go ahead and do that. It is not like that. You have to have good knowledge of the Vedas. Particularly, there are in Rigveda, there are a lot of uh, procedures mentioned, particularly in Atere Brahman, which is a part of uh, Rigveda, has a lot of procedure about how the yagna should be done and all that type of thing. And those yagnas, you won't believe, but those yagnas have tremendous amount of effect. I have seen as a child, kid myself, in our hometown when there would be no rain in the monsoon after June 22nd. That is about 125 north of Bombay. In Bombay, the rain would start around June 10 or something. The village people at the end of the street they would make yagna, havan kind of thing we used to call. And believe me, the rain was gone for many days, but when the people would come to take part in that yagna, they would come with umbrella because they knew that after the yagna, the rain is definitely going to happen here. So everybody has in their hand the umbrella. And I remember the yagna would take about a couple of hours. And after that couple of hours, there would be a lot of dark clouds and the rain would start. So I'm not just making a story, but I have seen that type of effect of the yagna that people used to do. So those things somehow have, as time is going on and people in the name of modernization, they are not too much aware about those procedures kind of thing. I think it is really time to scientifically understand more and more of those procedure and bring back those lovely things in life. But it requires the understanding of the masses. Not one person cannot do anything. And particularly in this country that is sort of becoming a little bit more and more remote thing. Sriyan dravyam yadyajnana jignana yagna parantapa sarvam karma akhilam partha gnane parisamapyate. He is putting an emphasis on on a gnana thing, and so he's saying that everything uh, knowledge sacrifice, a parantap, is superior to the wealth sacrifice. So he's emphasizing on knowledge again, that if you donate and all that, but Gnan is superior to that. All karma in its entirety, a path culminates in knowledge. So everything goes back in the knowledge uh, kind of thing. And so Gnan always has superiority. Uh, okay, I think today I will stop right here. It is a little bit early, but that's okay. We'll pick up a couple of questions. If there is somebody coming,
Amrit Bhai,
yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Chandrakant. Are you saying something, Chandrakant Bhai?
there is somebody coming. There is somebody coming. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, there is a feedback there. Two speakers are on. Okay. Okay, can you hear me now, Amrit Bhai?
Yeah, I'm
Is
hearing
it
you.
clear? Okay. The 24th shloka, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi, we recite that before a
Yeah.
meal,
Yes.
and supposedly some people do that because the intake of a meal is like a yagna to the
Yes.
body.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. And I just thought this is something some
But actually,
people might want to
let me tell you, I
consider doing if they
do
are,
that all I do
mainly yagnas.
I do that all the time, and the reason behind Brahma Arpana Brahma, Brahma Arpana Brahma means whatever is Brahman, I am offering it to you. That may be some good food in our plate, but that food came from Brahman. So Brahma Arpana Brahma, Kavir Brahma Agno Brahmana Hutam. The offerer is also Brahman, the food is also Brahman. And so the whole idea is to bring the notion in mind that, hey, if we are offering, we are not offering anything that does not belong to him. That itself is, belonging to him. So we are offering that Brahmevatena Gantavyam. And then that person, because for him everything is Brahman, Brahmevatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. By doing this kind of Brahma activities, he also goes into Brahman. So it is a supreme stanza. unbelievable stanza. And I think as a prayer, who have some good habits of doing this, can you imagine every time you would eat, you are offering something, that itself is Brahman? So the notion is outstanding. This is my very favorite stanza for many, many years, which I have sort of adapted in the offering. So thank you. You brought up that also. It is very good notion.
Just ultimate Advaitic concept here. Everything is Brahman. There's nothing other than Brahman.
No, but I tell you one thing, the Upanishad, the Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, which is known as Prasthan Trayi, it is such a marvelous scientific literature that I think, at least as we Hindus, and I'm not limiting this thing to only Hindus, but since many of our Hindu friends, being Hindus also, don't know about all these things, one of the constraint is the language, but now a lot of things are available in different languages also. I think if they know this science, what it would do is we know that if we jump out of the window, we are going to break the bone and all that. Similarly, this spiritually oriented physics, and we are going through that in chapter 3 and 4 now, that what you do and you are bound by the action. What a marvelous physics. That's a science that is saving us from bad effect of the karmas. We don't study that in school. We only know if we study the Gita, the Upanishad, etc., etc. So I don't know uh, how to influence the people in a way that they know, hey, this is a science just like physics, and at least we should know to a bare minimum of this science, so our life become much better.
If I may, Amrit
Yeah, please.
Unfortunately, when we use the word science, the mind always goes to the objective sciences. And this is a subjective science. It's really nothing that you can see, that you can put under a microscope and decide whether this is correct, this is not correct. So that concept becomes a little bit hard for people to grasp, I think, especially those who are beginning to study the scriptures. It's a
But
little bit harder to
yeah,
grasp that concept.
but in science, and I use the phrase physics all the time, which is my favorite thing. In physics also, we cannot observe gravitation. બારીમાંથી કૂદકો મારીને પડીએ ત્યારે ખબર પડે કે there was gravitation doing this thing. We also do not see millions of other planetary objects. Our eyes have limitations, but they are there. So what I mean to say, in physics, many of the things are seen by using conjectures, by bringing other evidence. For example, when the theory of relativity said the light is deflected if a heavy, massive object come in the way of the light. And Arthur Eddington didn't believe all these things in England. So after a decade or so, they all went to South Africa to make an experiment and to really see whether Einstein was right or wrong. And they really detected that the position of the star was deflected by another giant sun on the way. So they proved that, you know. So physics actually is a spiritual science because many of the good things are not proved by tangible methods. They have to be proved by conjecture, by understanding in another way. And the great physicists, they they are highly into the Sanskrit literature and Upanishadic literature and all that, because many of the things they understand for clarification from those literatures. So those peoples are very, very into that. So yes, you are right in a way that the subjective thing, but that is at the lower level, uh, who want to see everything by eyes. But that is not true in physics also.
There is a,
I still have to send you the formula where you will see that the time stretches like a rubber band. 1 hour here is 1,000 years somewhere else. So I have to send you, and you will see that that is not perceived by naked eyes, but with that mathematical formula, another conjecture, which for ordinary person, that is very hard to grasp. Because the ordinary people, they always want to have the proof by the senses, but they don't know the senses have the limitations.
when the first atom bomb was exploded, Robert Oppenheimer at once remarked what Lord Krishna said, that he is coming as a destroyer, seeing the power of the atom.
Oppenheimer was big on the Bhagavad Gita,
Yes.
and when they first made the demonstration in the Arizona desert, they detected the power of that instrument, and they realized by that physics experiment the power of the supreme, the Brahman. That so those people somehow, and many of the Germans, they took our Vedas, Upanishads books and studied very hard themselves. So I do admire those people. And those people studied Sanskrit in Kashi, Banaras, without the Pandit knowing the Germans. So they had to go through each word by Sangna, by sign language. Can you imagine how hard all that? But when I read the Sanskrit in German books, they have written in German so meticulously, unbelievable. And after that, those books were translated into English and all those kind of things. So one of the thing is when some other people came from another country and learn all these things, I hope our Indian friends also get the awakening and look into that a little bit. That is the advantage is the whole life, the effect of the actions, for example, alone, if we talk about how much big science is that, that, hey, by doing the action, you will still not accrue any effect of the karma. And by not doing, you may accrue something. All those kind of fascinating things are not found anywhere else.
Can I ask a question which is not related to what we are doing right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I've heard some children who are Indian, who have Indian parents, but they were born in this country and brought up in this country and now going to school and colleges. And they raise the question, why should I believe in God? Is there God? I don't know. How do we convince them that there is God or what we call God? Because they have a feeling that they can't see. Who has seen God? Why should I believe in God? That kind of question. What should we tell them? How can we educate them in this matter?
They are speaking that statement also because of the existence of God. If God was not there, they would not have been able to speak. They would not have the speech. The Sankhya thing has very clearly made the gradation: the body, the mind, buddhi, small self, and the big self. When the physicians, they do the surgery and all that, the person, the body, stopped feeling everything because of anesthesia or whatever they did. But after the prescribed time, 2 hours effect of anesthesia or 10 hours or whatever, the person come back to consciousness. So where was that conscious which was not visible all the time? And because it is not within the perception boundary, that doesn't mean something doesn't exist. So you just have to tell them in this language, my friend, something also exists even though it is not within the boundary of our perception. If you want to be a true scientist, you cannot avoid something which is outside the range of our senses.
Thank you.
Great, yeah.
Amrit,
Yeah.
the lost my train of thought. I was going to say something, but first of all, one has to have Shraddha when you start something. Shraddha meaning a belief that what you're hearing from somebody or seeing, that it is true. So I explained to people, so what do you mean by Shraddha? I said, when you buy a ticket to fly somewhere, you step into that plane. How do you know that the pilot really is trained to fly you and get you there? So you have some Shraddha, just a very concrete example of that Shraddha. And then say, oh, well, yeah, that because we think the airlines has checked it out and all. But that's still, there is a certain amount of Shraddha is needed. So same thing with, I think, in terms of God, you first start with the Shraddha, that there is its existence. But then what the points that you made are very valid in terms of explaining to somebody who thinks Where is God? I haven't seen him. I don't see what's happening. So that's just my little comment on that.
Shraddha is such a Sanskrit phrase. It is hard to grasp the true meaning by associating other words like faith or faith with spirituality or whatever you try to understand the meaning of Shraddha. There is always shortcoming. Shraddha does not happen overnight. Shraddha is your not from only experiences of this life, but it is the life, it is the chain of lives that you have gone through. Shraddha just come to you. You don't go to Shraddha. When you take plane flight, for example, and whoever is your deity, whoever is your worshipable God form, or even Advait Brahman, and not just for the plane flight, but anything in life for that matter. The Shraddha is something not too well defined, is something which is always by your side. And it just happened to you. It just, Shraddha, faith, you have to go to the faith, but Shraddha comes to you. It take away all the fear and all the other, whatever it is. So, Shraddha is something which is your not this life experience, but it is the package that has come with you all the time. That is how I perceive.
Amit bhai,
Yeah.
am I here? I had further thought on Sanat bhai's question. I had seen a quotation, I don't remember which Veda it is from, in terms of child asking a question about God. So that quotation comes very handy to me and made more sense, which
Yeah.
is that you cannot see, but because of which you can see, that you cannot hear, but because of which you can hear,
Right.
that you cannot think about and conceptualize,
Right.
but because of which you can think, is that consciousness, God or Brahman or whatever label you want to put in.
That is from Ken Upanishad.
Ken Upanishad? Acha.
Ken Upanishad first stanza is
Mhm.
begins with Ken,
Mhm.
by whom. So
Mhm.
all the things you are mentioning has the beginning with by whom
Mhm.
I hear, by whom I see, etc., etc. So
Mhm.
your phrase is the first stanza of Ken Upanishad. It is a marvelous, marvelous thing. You probably might want to read the whole thing.
Okay, thanks. I thought it
See
might
the
be
meaning of Ken, why it is called Ken Upanishad.
Mhm.
Ken means by whom.
By whom? By, yeah. Ken.
Sanskrit, so by whom, and then there is a chain of whole arguments that
Mhm.
go on in the Upanishad. The entire Upanishad answers the question by whom,
Mhm.
whatever, that is answered in that Ken Upanishad thing.
So Sanat bhai might find it handy to answer that question from the kids who wonder about why should I believe in God and why
Exactly.
can't I see God
Yeah.
and believe with God?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Maya Beni.
There are about 112 Upanishads, and they count major Upanishads about 8 or 12. However, there are very small Upanishads, and many of them, if you have some scripture which contain all the 112 Upanishads, that would be worth looking into that, you know. Tremendous amount on the knowledge is unbelievable scientific, you know, actually. And I'm big on using the phrase, it is scientific, you know, it is not a hocus pocus kind of thing. It is scientific. I'll give you an example. Shankaracharya wrote one 581 stanza, uh, which is called Vivek Chudamani, a crest jewel of discrimination. And that from the beginning to the end proves mathematically, pure mathematics, stanza after stanza. And by the end of 581 stanzas, you can clearly see the Advaita. He's proving that. So actually speaking, all these Upanishads, and being a mathematician myself, you know, I can appreciate when the arguments are mathematical. And that is so powerful kind of thing that you can see that. So the problem is the people who have not gone into deep study of these very valuable scriptures, they are arguing only from the hollow mind. They don't have this substantive logic either, you know. So it is good whichever way you can, not for the sake of arguing, but putting the things in the right perspective. I think that is a good thing, good service to the society. Any more? All right, then look like I think we have enough and the right time to pause here for my Sanskrit friends now. So I'm going to shut off the video and continue the Zoom for the Sanskrit friends.